Hey guys, welcome back to the channel Everyday Caddy for the Everyday Guy. So firstly, I do apologize for the hippie headwear, but it is kind of freezing. And I've got like the special room in my place where I film. And for some reason, that room is always like super cold. It's like this, it's like a dungeon kind of thing. So sorry about that. Today we're going to be having a look at the Colonel Blade. So a lot of people have asked me why it's taken me so long to do this review. And the simple reason for that is the Colonel Blade is a dedicated self-defense tool. So what I mean by that is if this comes out, chances are you're going to be saving your life or someone else's life or taking someone else's life or both. So I wanted to give it a bit more time. I wanted to understand the mechanics of it, how to carry it, how I found best to carry it, that sort of thing. I didn't just want to do an unboxing review and not give like a experience style review of this tool. Now, when this came out a few years ago, it was kind of touted as the next TDI, the best blade for self-defense, and it's got some really amazing features. But there are a couple of things I do want to point out about this blade that a lot of people may have misconceptions about. So firstly, just specs wise, I'm not going to hop on this too much. The blade steel is AUS 8 blade steel, which is good for rust resistance. The grips are GFN grips, which is glass filled nylon, which is basically the same thing as fiber reinforced nylon. It's got some jimping on the top over here. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know how well that's showing up on the camera right there. So it does suggest that use in a sort of saber grip is a thought of design, and it's also got some grippy texture at the bottom of here. And then quite obviously, as you can see, the blade or the shape of the blade is a quite aggressively curved blade. It is a one-piece design, so the blade runs all the way through, and effectively the grips are, or the scales are bolted onto the actual blade steel itself. So that's that out of the way. Oh, sorry. Also, you get a Kydex polymer sheath with a clip that you can pretty much mount wherever you want. So it's got a screw over there, and you can put this thing wherever you want at whatever angle you want it at, whether you want to draw left or right hand or whatever the case may be. And then it does also come with a training option. This does not fit into the sheath, which I was a bit saddened by that, but it is what it is. So yeah, small training option made out of what feels like the same thing the sheath is made out of, which is Kydex, but I'm not 100% certain. So the blade itself, a lot of people start off thinking that this is a sort of a straight punching tool. What I mean by that is you put it in your hand and you punch as you would normally punch, and that is how you use it. And it's kind of right and kind of not right. What I mean by that is, if I want to go to another blade of a similar design, the Ka-Bar TDI. So as you see, if I hold the TDI in my hand, and the reason I'm using this is because it just shows better on camera. The blade itself indexes with the knuckle on my index finger, right? And the Colonel blade does the same thing, okay? In its most comfortable position, it indexes with the knuckle of my index finger, and by extension, obviously, the rest of my knuckles. So while you are going to use this in a punching motion, okay, it's not a straight punching tool. What I mean by that is, and the reason I picked it up is, for quite a few years, and quite a few years ago, I did Muay Thai, and I was training for a fight. And so I trained 5 days a week, Monday to Thursday and on Sunday. And so every Thursday, I think it was, we had a boxing coach come in, and we would do just boxing for the whole 2 hours. And what would happen is I would punch and twist my hand sort of like that in the gloves. Every time I hit the focus mitt, it would, once every, say, 5 or 6 punches, I'd get like this electric shock type thing through my wrist. And I would grimace on my face. And I never forget the boxing coach saying, if you do that again, if I see it on your face, you can do push-ups. And I did push-ups a lot of times because it was like involuntary. And later on we discovered that was the problem. Okay, so when you punch, you want straight lines and you want straight lines so that the maximum of the face of your fist hits your target, and you got good structure behind. Straight lines are strong, angles are weak, referencing Travis Haley. So if you were to hold this in your hand and sort of a fist, right, and you put this in your hand, you're going to get that well, that effect. Okay, so you have to understand that when you do punch, it is a knuckles forward punch. No matter which way, whether you do it like that, like that, like that, it doesn't matter. You are effectively punching knuckles forward. You are indexing the blade, so it's not a straight grab and punch type tool. That kind of thing would be more your push daggers, and I know Craig Douglas at Shipworks does a really, really good one of those. So if you want something where you can grab and punch and it's going to be protruding, directly into your opponent, then you kind of want to look at more a push dagger. This tool, however, is more of a stabbing tool. You're going to have to index the point or the tip of the blade with your sort of knuckle. I hope I'm describing this correctly. If I'm not, comment below and let me know if you get what I'm saying. But so you sort of having to angle your fist. There you go. That's kind of what I'm saying. In order to get the blade to go, into your target, you have to angle your fist a bit, and this is not a good way to punch. That's a punch. That's a stab with a kernel blade. So, having said that, let's get on to what I think is amazing. Firstly, the way this is shaped is very similar to the grip of a firearm. Now, this firearm is empty and safe, so don't stress about that. Trying to get this as nicely as I can, but do you kind of see how it kind of lines up with the grip of my Glock? So if you're going to carry this as a backup for when you're not carrying a firearm and you carry it in the appendix position, the draw stroke is going to be very similar, although the only difference there is you're going to stick your finger in the trigger guard area if it was your firearm. So be aware of that. If you're going to carry this like for 6 weeks and all of a sudden you switch to your firearm, this finger is going to need more discipline when you go for your firearm. It's designed for shooters. Okay, it's designed for people who carry firearms and they want a tool that has a similar draw mechanism to the firearm, so that training is minimized. Now, pretty much everybody can do that, guys. I'm not saying doing this is difficult. I'm simply saying understand it's not doing that. So that's that. Then moving on to the positioning of the knife on your body. So a lot of people advocate, and I don't disagree with them. You're going to hear a lot of opinions in the next 5 minutes, so be aware of that. Opinions, not recommendations. A lot of people advocate carrying this in the same position that you'd carry your firearm. Nothing wrong with that, and I get it and I agree with it. It doesn't work for me for one very specific reason. So I was on a course a few years ago and it involved guns, knives, and pepper spray, if my memory serves me correctly. And so we did a drill where I had my gun in my appendix position, or a training gun in the appendix position, and a can of pepper spray, I think it was on my hip. And what had happened was I had gone for the pepper spray to deter a target or a bad guy, and it turns out that everything went to crap and I had to switch to my gun, and that was kind of fun. And I had no problem with it. Then it switched where the gun was removed and I had a knife. And so I put the pepper spray sort of in the appendix position, just in like a quick rush to chuck it down there to have it on me, because we had to get to the line. And I had the knife, I think, on my hip. And at the moment of truth, in the frazzle and dazzle of everything, I, for a split second, lost my train of thought on which was which. Meaning, the pepper spray was just on my hip a second ago, but now it's sort of there, and the knife is now where the pepper spray was, so which am I going, you know what I mean? And so since then, I have sort of dedicated my appendix position to my firearm. And again, guys, I'm not saying this is how you should do it. I'm saying this is how I do it. It might be completely wrong. So I don't advocate doing what I'm doing. It's just telling you what I have experienced. So since then, as I say, I've started carrying my firearm in my appendix position only. So my right hand is my firearm hand, appendix. If I'm going to carry the kernel blade, I would more than likely carry it towards my weak side, or even at 4 o'clock, even though I don't like that, because I like to dedicate my right hand to just firearm. So you'll even see on my backpacks, my pepper spray, all those things will be on the left hand side, because it's my weak hand. I know if anything's in this hand, it's not my gun. If anything is in this hand, it is my gun, because I get very stupid when I get frazzled and I don't need to be thinking about extra things. But that is just me. And I'm absolutely not recommending you do it that way. If you are unsure, consult a professional and they will explain better ways to do it than what I'm doing it. And I'm sure with more training that mind frazzle will get mitigated, and I'll understand the concept of, or I'll be able to apply the concept of multiple tools in my right hand, multiple tools in my left hand. I also quite like using a self-defense blade in my left hand as a distance-making tool. So I would carry it on my weak side, or I would carry it on my weak side, similar to pepper spray. So that is my positioning, and I may have, or I may chuck in some B-roll of where you can put this. One of the things I'm not a big fan of is you'll see a lot of guys carry this like where the blade is like that on their belt. I get it, it's more comfortable, but the draw on this is not as easy as when the blade sits sort of vertically. You get a much better grip and a much more easier grip index when you have more to grip onto. Similarly, when your firearm sort of sits on your belt and you go to draw, you've got to dig your hand into your belt and then get it, and I'm not a big fan of that way of doing things. Again, guys, remember, everything is an opinion, nothing is a recommendation. So what sets this apart from other blades? Firstly, or other blades from self-defense, firstly, this little finger loop over here means weapon retention. There's a high level or high probability of weapon retention. That's a big deal, okay? One of the biggest things about fights when you involve weapons is weapon retention. So if you've got this and you've got a proper grip, and the chances are that grip is going to be a convulsive grip. So, you're not going to get your hands open easily. So you're going to retain your weapon, which means you can A, continue using it, and B, your opponent or your bad guy is not going to use it against you. B, the shape of this tool is absolutely for stabbing, no matter which angle you come at it. If you index it correctly, you've got a lot of options. It does have quite an aggressive edge, or not quite an aggressive, quite a sharp edge on it. So if slashing is your deal, there is that option. For me personally, if I'm going to use this, I'm fairly confident it's going to be in a flurry of stabs to get someone off me or to get someone away from me. The thing that scares me about knives is that for me to use it, the bad guy has to be within arm's reach, and that's a bad situation right there. I don't want to be there. Fighting with knives is a very scary deal for me. Chances are, if you're in a knife fight and someone has a knife as well, you're probably going to get stabbed, right? If you do buy this and you intend to carry it and you intend to apply knife combat to your repertoire, if you have to, of course, go into it with the knowledge that you're probably going to get stabbed. But remember, being stabbed doesn't mean the lights go out, okay? So if the light is still on, you have to keep fighting. You don't get to make the call as to when the lights go out. So you keep fighting until a more powerful entity or deity or whoever you believe in decides, well, you've had enough. That scares me. So when I say weapon retention is important, if you consider something like this is the K-bar fin. This is an all-metal design, okay? If I get this wet, like, I don't know, say with blood, it's going to get extremely slippery. And that's where this design comes to the fore. You are not going to stab and have this and basically be able to cut yourself, okay? Your grip on the blade, this protective piece over here, means your hands won't go forward to a point where you will be able to cut yourself with your own blade, which is extremely useful. Even something like my EDC blade, the Griptilian, there is a likelihood if I stabbed and I hit a bone or I hit a rib or I hit a sternum, that could happen. That's not a good situation. Chances are, if you're fighting somebody with a knife, it's someone who doesn't live a healthy lifestyle. You've got the possibility of blood carrying diseases and things like that. You don't want to get yourself cut. But knife fighting is a crap storm, and yeah, I'm very, very scared of ever getting into a knife fight. So the Colonel blade, is it currently the pinnacle of self-defense blades? I would say, depending on the user, it's on par with a push dagger. But even a push dagger has some drawbacks, okay? There's no perfect tool. This has some amazing design features. I especially like this, this area over here. This is clever. I especially like the shape of the blade as well. In terms of it, index is very similar to your firearm. So there's going to be a natural draw stroke if you're carrying it in the appendix position. It's definitely worth getting if you can't get a push dagger that suits your needs. And a push dagger that suits your needs, guys, ideally you want the same grip. You want a grip that is going to fill up your entire hand. But what I like about push daggers is they index like that, for example. So you can literally throw a punch and the blade is going to hit first, and it's just a natural, normal punch. So I really like that. And maybe I'll try to get a push tiger that I can sort of give an example with on the channel soon. This, by the way, was sent to me by Martin Null at The Knife Guy. He's got an online store, and if you like knives and you want to buy online, then that is pretty much like the store you want to go and look at. He's got like everything. And I think he may even have a few of these left over. Don't quote me on that. These, for the moment, have been, the manufacturer has been put on pause as far as I understand. So if you can get your hands on one of these, definitely go for it. It's still an extremely functional defensive tool, especially if you don't carry a gun. It goes in the same place as a gun would go, and it feels in the hand very similar to how you'd grip your firearm. So definitely try to get one of those. I would say if you're going to buy a knife for defensive purposes, it must come with a training tool. Because how are you going to train with it if it doesn't? Very important. This you can use on a punching bag. You can practice your indexing. You can understand what it's going to feel like to hit something hard with a blade angled this way. You need to know those things so that when you do it in real life, you know exactly what you're doing and it becomes like a muscle reflex. And guys, that is pretty much it. A very simple tool. And as with sort of defensive blades, they are very simple. There's not a lot of frills, not a lot of fuss. It's basically pull out, stab, run away, and live for another day. And that's the methodology behind it. Do I recommend this thing? You're not going to catch me out like that. I don't recommend anything. My opinion on this, except for push daggers, and quite similar to push daggers, they are sort of at the pinnacle of self-defense bladed tools for, I would go so far as to say, for the less trained. People think bladed tools, fixed blades don't require training. Any tool requires training, okay? Especially if it's a tool for self-defense. This mitigates a lot of training because it's very simple to use once you understand the mechanics of it. I do see how this can be of added value, but I'm not going to recommend this to you. That's a decision you're going to have to make for yourself. So guys, that is it. A massive thanks to Martin Null at The Knife Guy for sending me this. I will leave links to everything down below, so if you want to check out his store, you definitely can. If you do check out his store, have some money available because you're probably going to end up buying something. So prepare for that. That's it, guys. Have a good week. I will see you guys soon for another review. Cheers. God bless.